Good evening, darlings. How are you today? Today's goth band recommendation is called Hallows. Now, yeah, they're kind of like a dark wave gothic band, yeah. Um, the reason why I'm recommending that band because it has something to do with this video. um, they're one of the only goth bands that I actually got to see live, and I think they're really cool. I think they're really good, and it's just two people, and they make incredible fucking music, and they just made a new song, a new music video the other day. So go check it out. Now, are you a goth and you want to go on vacation somewhere and you don't know exactly where to go? And you're going to, like, say, a state that's, very conservative. There's nothing really to do gothic wise, right? Well, I live in probably one of the most conservative states out there. That is Montana. But, it's getting a little bit better over the years. There's more and more people that's, starting to, get out of the conservative situation and becoming more, open to things. So, yeah, that's pretty cool, right? Anyways, so the whole point of this video is, say you're going on a trip to Montana. You're a goth. You don't know what to do. So this is a video that's sort of giving a little goth history of the goth culture in Montana. It's not long. It's not a long video at all because it's kind of just like maybe a few things. So, if you're interested in that or plan on coming to Montana, keep on watching. First thing to note is Montana is, now this isn't necessarily goth, but more of like the darkly inclined thing. But Montana is incredibly famous for haunted attractions. There is over 100 ghost towns. So there's that in mind. And if we think about it, most towns here are ghost towns. But there's 100 like official ghost towns around here. One of the ones that I went to, well, I mean, we go to them all the time around here, but one of the ones that is one of my favorites is the Bannock ghost town, which is like probably about an hour away from me, an hour and a half maybe away from me. It's more close to the Dillon area, I think, but so yeah, so um, there's a whole bunch of places if you want to visit for haunted attractions. There's the Deer Lodge haunted prison. That's very famous. There's like, I think that's like the main reason people go visit that town is for the haunted prison. Um, I know Ghost Hunters did an episode there. I don't know. I think a Ghost Adventures did too. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, there's that. I live in Anaconda, which there is also a couple haunted attractions. Like I remember when I was a little kid, there was this house that was like right across from Taco Time. It's like, kind of never really, like it's been owned, but it's never really been like lived in. And it was like always told that it was a very haunted place, and it was like where a serial killer used to live and stuff. But um, with like trying, it's kind of hard to prove it though because you can't really find any actual evidence of where the serial killer actually lived, which I guess is Shoebox Annie, if you ever heard of her. But you know, it's kind of, that whole story is kind of interesting because it's not actual factual evidence that she actually did what she's accused of and stuff like that. Um, Butte has a lot of haunted attractions. They like there's an episode if you find it somewhere on YouTube of a haunted brothel. Um, that was like one of the oldest. brothels in the country, and that is considered to be incredibly haunted. Um, there's like an old police station there that I think at one point used to be a sort of like a small hospital too. That place is considered to be haunted. Um, um, there's so many places. Honestly, go to any town in Montana, and there's probably at least like 10 or 12 haunted attractions, or at least a 100 haunted attractions. Like, it is, because the state is kind of old and stuff, old minded, and that's part of like the whole Western thing is like almost everything around here is haunted, and like my apartment is supposedly, I don't know, supposed to be haunted. My mom says it's haunted, but I haven't really seen anything. I know my cat's toys likes to go off every 10 minutes, and they're like sensor things, so like there has to be something around it for it to go off, and it'll like to go off like any almost all day, even when the cats are not near it. So I guess that is a ghost. I don't know. Okay, now let's talk about clubs. So far the only club that's like an active club is in Missoula, and the page is known as the Goth Montana Goth Ball, and lately they've been having a lot more events. Usually it's only like once or twice a year that they have events, but lately I've been seeing they've been having a lot, like at least 3 or 4 of them. So at least 3 of them this, from November to now. So you know, something to keep. It's kind of fun. The main bands that they usually have there is Order of the Static Temple and Hallows, which I got to go see Hallows about almost 2 years ago there, and I really liked it. It was really fun. I don't really get the chance to go there often. I only went there one time so far because it's a 2-hour drive from me, and I don't have a car at the moment. So you know, uh, it's whenever I can, I guess. But it is pretty fun. And the prices are pretty reasonable too. It's like 10 dollars per person, or $10 or $20 per person. Um, I guess it depends on what show it is, and um, it's really fun. The only other place that kind of sometimes has clubs is Billings, uh, which is like the complete other end of Montana, and Montana is a pretty big state, so it's like a good 8, 6. It's a 4-hour drive from Anaconda to Billings. So with if you're in Missoula area, it's like a good 6-hour drive, back and forth. But there was that, and then this year, no, well, not this year, like November of 2024, there was a sorry, I need to drink water. But anyways, there was a goth night over in Butte. I wasn't able to attend. I requested that day off, but work is work. Um, but I heard, I thought it was gonna be one of those things where like, those club nights would like say, "Oh, it's a goth night," and then just play a bunch of new metal shit or, EBM shit. But I guess from what I heard is they actually played some good goth music down there. So maybe I'll go again this year if they do another one. But aside from that, club wise, not many. That's about it. Concert wise, let's talk about that. Again, honestly, it's almost like more rare to see goth bands performing, unless it is Hollows or Static Order of the Static Temple, which they're kind of in the industrial dark wave situation, still in the realms of a little bit of goth, not so much industrial, but um we don't really get much alternative concerts in Montana. Honestly, it's just mainly metal bands that would come in Montana, that are like considered like alternative, right? Like, the one concert that I did get to go to that was more of like on the industrial side was over in Billings about 2 years ago, to the exact day almost, and it was with Ministry, Gary Newman, and Frontline Assembly, which that was a really cool concert. Kind of a small venue for them to perform in because they're big bands, but uh, aside from that, like I think the most alternative bands that you would see come through here would be in this moment. They come through like every few years or so. Five Finger Death Punch. I think Lacuna Coil is supposed to be performing in Montana. Same with Cradle of Filth, but those are all metal bands, and you know, unfortunately for us goths, I mean, they'll be fun. They'd be fun to probably go to, but they're not goth bands, and I think the closest we'll ever get to a good goth, like good main big goth band, like when I say main big goth band, I'm like talking like about Bauhaus or Susie and the Banshees. But I think the closest we'll get in Montana for that would be industrial music. So, you know, it's kind of a bummer for that, but um, that's how it is. If we want to go to a concert, we probably have to either go to Washington, Spokane, which is about a 6 hour, well, 4 or 6 hour drive, or Oregon, or Colorado, which those are also like 6+ hour drives. So, there's that. A little fun fact for golf history. If you know the band Sopor Aeternus and the Ensemble of Shadows, they have a music video called A Strange Thing to Say. And I'll link it in the video. And that was filmed in two places in Montana, actually, which I was very surprised because I didn't even know they really came. I was very surprised when I found out about that. Um, but if you remember me talking about earlier, the Bannock ghost town over sort of by the Dillon area. Um, Part of that music video was shot there in that ghost town, and then part of it was shot in Missoula. So I mean, if you watch it, which I'll send the link to, and you'll see like the parts where the singer, she's like dancing in the weird hotel thing. That's the hotel in the abandoned, or not sort of not abandoned, but the ghost town over in Bannock, and it's kind of cool, kind of really cool to watch. So I think you guys should check that out. Now, when it talks about like bands like forming here, other than me trying to make a goth band, which is nearly impossible, I'm trying to. It's just gotta find the people that have sort of the same vision as I do, or similar to the same vision as I do. Because most people here that want to make like alternative music, it's usually like metal or like bluegrass rock or something, and I just want something that's more of gothic rock and ethereal wave put together and the kind of stuff like that. But there was a band in Montana. I think they originally formed in Missoula, and I think they're now in Idaho or somewhere like that. And this was a band called Tomb Toad, which I'll link that in the description below too. Which those guys, they have a really cool sound to them. It's almost like very nostalgic. Almost feels like it's 2000s. But well, I guess the EP that's on here is from like 2015. But it reminds me so much of like 2003, 2002, and it's kind of really cool. Um, I'll send you the link to that too. But aside from that, goth bands don't really come from Montana. Um, you know, um, there's this metal band called Walking Corpse Syndrome that came from Montana. Um, Now I don't entirely know if they formed in Missoula. I heard from a couple different sources when I was like trying to start a metal band back when I was a teenager. That band was originally from Deer Lodge, but the story also would change, like saying it's from they formed in Missoula. But I think what happened is like they might have started in Deer Lodge and then they kind of put their music out in Missoula. They kind of moved down to Missoula because like that Missoula and Billings is like the two towns that are like have any good cultural significance in this state. Maybe Bozeman, but that's about it. Um, I think this band, like a rock band called Tim Montana. They're from Montana, obviously, but those are rock bands, metal bands, which they're cool, but not goth. Hopefully, I'll be making a goth band soon. I've been kind of sneaking in my music here occasionally. If you listen to the backgrounds of some of it, um, it kind of sucks so far because it's just me making it, but yeah. So there's that. And that's basically the history of the Gothic history of Montana. Honestly, it's not like I said, it's not big. It's not nothing like New York or California or Germany, you know. And I have to say, like, aside from finding goths in Missoula and Billings, there's not really any goths around here. Honestly, like you'll get metalheads. That's more of like the main thing, like around Montana. If like there's any alternative people or emo people, or those emos or metalheads that like to say that they're goths when really all they listen to is just heavy metal. Like their idea of a goth band is Motionless in White or Marilyn Manson, right? There's a lot of Rob Zombie fans around here. Like I'm surprised for how many people around here are Rob Zombie fans, which I'm a Rob Zombie fan. I love Rob Zombie, but not goth, but more on the metal side. um, but aside from that, that's about it. There's nothing really alternative like in the state of Montana. It's very much a westernized state, very cowboyish and stuff like that. And, which is kind of odd because I don't think the band, the goth band, Fields of Nephilim, or Nephilim, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I don't think they've ever performed in Montana, which it's kind of funny because, like, that's like, when everybody keeps talking about country or like cowboy goth, I always picture Fields of Nephilim or Nephilim, whatever. And it's very surprising to me that I don't think they've ever performed in Montana, which they should. I think they should. Um, I think they'd get a really good crowd going, especially at like some of the festivals around here. Which, by the way, actually, there's apparently another festival in Montana, which I kind of learned about this. And it's not like necessarily goth music, but it's very much more like inclined, like adjacent with goth, especially these days. But there's this festival in like the Black Forest, or not Black Forest, the Blackfeet area of Montana called River in the Mountains. And I really wanted to go to this, but it's just so I, I don't have nowhere near amount of the money to go to those things. But a lot of the bands started performing there. There's Wardruna, which, Wardruna, if you don't know by now, they make a lot of the music for the TV show Vikings. And Chelsea Wolfe, which she has some kind of goth inclined stuff going with it. But that's, I believe, is in August. But hopefully that is a festival that will go again next year, and hopefully I'll save enough money to actually go to it next year because the lineup for that was actually kind of cool. But oh my god, it is so pricey. But at the same time, it is like around the Flathead or Blackfoot area, which that area is very expensive in Montana. Like, um, it's like $800 for a hotel room up there. So, it's that. But aside from that, that's like all I have to really tell you about Goth and Gothic inclined history of Montana. um, There is a rock festival in Montana that's not the Fire in the Mountains. It's called Rock on the Rivers, but it's just mainly rock bands. There's no goth bands that ever really perform there, I don't think. So, yeah. I hope you enjoy it and stay tuned for the next video, I guess. Bye.